What's up, everybody? Welcome to Big News. My name's Alchemist. That's Boris. And today we got Infernity / Tyler. And today we're going to be covering a wide variety of topics that I find interesting this week in the One Piece world. So if you want to introduce yourself, Tyler, let's get this thing going.
I'm Tyler Collier. I have a regional win in Set 2 and a Treasure Cup top 4 in Set 3 with Zoro and Whitebeard respectively. I started playing the beginning of Set 2, but I have some other TCG experience that sort of helped me get ahead faster. Because I know some people, when they start, it takes a lot longer than, what is that, like 3 months to win an event? But also got kind of, lucky in top 16, but it happens.
Cool. What games did you play beforehand? Really?
I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At a local since like 2007.
Dang, okay.
Really?
Cool.
I played Vanguard for a couple years. Tried out Digimon when the pandemic started, but I live like an hour and a half from my closest local, and so I just didn't keep up with it.
Ooh.
So what brought you to One Piece? Do you watch One Piece? What do you...
Yeah, I've watched all the episodes. I don't read it. I try to not read it after watching so many episodes because it's kind of more fun to have the surprises. I wanted to start in Set 1, and my friend actually had cases. I remember he said the Nami alt art was like $80, which that card is nowhere near 80 since the game started, but I didn't have any money, straight up. I had some unfortunate financial things come up, and I just literally had I think at a certain point like $20.
Yeah, Set 1 was crazy. I mean, I think Alchemist, we kind of hopped in like in the middle of Set 1, I want to say.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it was.
I guess it was like around Miami time when when Miami was happening was when we pretty much got into the game a little bit before that.
Yeah, I managed to pre-order 2 boxes like 6 months before the game came out, and that's all I got because I was like you couldn't even find packs anywhere.
They were like $300 a box back then, right?
Yeah. So.
Well, anyways, we're glad to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and jump into our first topic, which is Knoxville happened this weekend, and Whitebeard took 12 of the top 32 spots. And we're going to discuss the tiers a little bit later, but there's a lot of people basically saying that Whitebeard is the best deck. I don't know if I feel that way. I think it is better in this format than it was in 3.5. Just because there's less Zoros around, and there is kind of like caution to the wind to play Zoro because it kind of gets stomped on by Rebecca. So I think Whitebeard is closer to the top deck, but I don't think it is the best deck. But a lot of people do. What do you think, Boris? What do you think about Whitebeard's dominance in this last weekend?
So we covered a little bit on the meta Monday video, but essentially, yeah, it was a little shocking to see just how many top spots were taken up by Whitebeard. And also just how many of the top players were on Whitebeard as well. I definitely, if I would have gone to the event, I would have not been prepared for that many Whitebeards. Now, according to some of the friends that did end up going to Knoxville, they mentioned that they didn't actually play that many Whitebeards in Swiss. It was actually a lot of the newer decks. So I'm wondering, because I'm not sure if we have the data, but I'm wondering if it was just a low number of Whitebeards that all had high conversion rates, essentially the top players on Whitebeard. Or were there actually a lot of Whitebeards there? That's actually something that I'm really interested to know. I don't know if we'll ever get those numbers. Same thing with the Zoro. I'm interested to see how many Zoros were there. But yeah, it's as long as that leader's around, I think. Well, apparently it falls off in Set 5, but I don't know.
Well, do you think it's
that's
the best
actually
deck in the format?
Right now, do I think it's the best deck? Probably. I think. If people are saying Katakuri was going to be the best deck, so, what deck counters Katakuri? It's always kind of been Whitebeard. Whitebeard, from what I understand, also has a good law matchup, or potentially, I always hear it back and forth. Yeah, so, I don't know, but it's just again, 6K, a lot of people will not be prepared. I think if people play in another turn, like let's say the next tournament, I think people are going to be more prepared, and then I don't think Whitebeard's going to do as well. But like I mentioned, I think the lack of people... I think people maybe ran less 2Ks than they did before because they didn't think Whitebeard was going to be a big deal. I know, like I said, I would have probably been on that train as well, where I was running more 1Ks. So What do you think? What do you think, Infernity?
I think, as you said, I'd like to see those numbers of like how many of each deck entered, like how many Whitebeard, how many Zoro, and their like conversion rate to top cut. But I don't think Whitebeard's the best deck in the format. I think a lot of people got thrown off by the potential set 3 for that event when they threw it back for a day. And they just decided, hey, I'm just going to play the deck that doesn't change. And Whitebeard's more of a deck that if your opponent draws bad, I'm always going to draw like the same as Whitebeard. So I'm just going to consistently do my thing of, 6k leader, you're always having to fight up on that. And I'm just going to swing 7 for 1 Dawn on most of my characters. And that's really hard for a lot of decks to deal with. And going to the sort of the Law thing, where Law can have a bad Whitebeard matchup. I think if Law sees 1 blocker Law, or just draws on average like playable, it's really hard for Whitebeard. With Will's list, where he ran like a bunch of Red Hawks, it might be a little different, but you can also play around Red Hawk, and late game you usually don't even have a target for it, because usually it's like a bunch of Zoros on the board and Law blocker.
Yeah, I did hear that. I think Cross kind of miscounted his math on 2 games versus Will, so potentially just when you play 14 rounds, you're probably super exhausted.
That's the thing about Whitebeard. It just like punishes mistakes so hard. Like it's usually only a 7 or 8 turn game, so it's not a whole lot of content to go through in terms of a game. But if you mess up anywhere and the Whitebeard doesn't, you're more than likely gonna lose.
Yeah, and I do like the point you mentioned as well that it is probably I don't know if it's the most consistent deck. It might be, but essentially you're pretty much seeing the same curve every game. Whether it's a 4 or 5 drop, and then followed up with like either a Thatch or an Ace, and then if you're lucky and you hit the 9 drop, you do. But you're essentially you have so many you see so many cards throughout the early part of the game that you're able to scope that early game into the late game. So it could in a 9-round tournament, 10-round tournament, like consistency is a big deal. So yeah.
So Tyler, what do you think is Whitebeard's worst matchup in this format right now?
Coming from, both of us played Whitebeard through a lot of set 3, my biggest fear every tournament was a good Law player that didn't brick. Because at a certain point, you just can't play the game when Law sees like 2 blocker Laws, their Bonnie, their Nami, Searcher. They just beat you straight up. It's really bad. So I think
especially if they're running Vista, right? Like if they're running the Vistas to pop, like you play a Fossa or something, I think you're safe, and then they like Vista and then like double restand or something. That could be dangerous.
Yeah, Vista's always been that high risk, high reward card for Law because it's not searchable. But if you see it, it's like, oh, I'm gonna blow up all your blockers and potentially like your 5k cards as well with Otama.
Yeah. Well, since we're rolling into a little bit of Law, what do you think's Law's worst matchup? Just as a side note.
Law's worst matchup is going to be Zoro and Rebecca. I haven't played much Law this set, but from talking with Thomas Wynn, a pretty accomplished Law player, he really doesn't want to see Rebecca. He can win it, but Rebecca has to draw poorly, play poorly, and Law has to draw well. So pretty much mass removal decks really hinder Law, as you need to build out that board, and if you're building it out on your 10 Dawn turn, your opponent's probably also in a good position on their 10 Dawn.
So it seems like maybe Law might be the best deck, but the consistency of Whitebeard is so hard to beat, right? So I guess that's why I put that matchup always at a 50-50, because it's like it's the highest high roll versus the most consistent game plan, and especially with all the Rush Luffy's on either side. Rush Luffy basically is linchpin who gets to see like their Rush Luffy that game. It's so good in that matchup.
Yeah, I definitely think Law is the best deck in the format, but it kind of depends on Law versus Whitebeard, who goes first, who goes second, who draws well, who draws poorly.
And who's basically playing the best as well, even though it is way harder for the Law to play better. All right.
I think to your point as well, Alex, just real quick, I think like you mentioned, Rush Luffy, I think a lot of people have kind of started understanding how to play with the card a little bit better. I think people now understand that you can just leave it on the field, don't attack with it, and then have a threat of a 16k attack your next turn. Or even if you're in Law, you're threatening the double swing, right? So on double unblockable, so it doesn't matter how many blockers they have.
That's all you have to do as Law to win the Whitebeard matchup, is just have a Luffy in a full board, and then you play the Luffy standing, and there's nothing the Whitebeard can do, and you just destroy them with double unblockable 14s.
So yeah, I think as the game progresses and people kind of get a little bit better over time, uh, they'll kind of realize that there's kind of different angles, or you don't always have to attack with all your guys. You can leave them back sometimes and stuff like that. So.
All right, moving on. We had 3 Crocs that finished, and I know, Tyler, you've been working on some Croc stuff, and said we were talking before, and you think it's like not the best deck, but I feel like it has a lot of answers. Like if those 2 Crocs didn't have to face that Zoro that won, I feel like the Croc would have had a really good time in top 32. So how do you feel about Croc and how it fits into this meta?
I think Croc is a good deck. I want to play it, I want to say it's tier 1, but I think it's tier 2 because its worst matchups are most likely Zoro that just won the event. I believe the Zoro player said outside of his top 32 with Green Dofi, he 2-0'd everyone, including the 2 Crocs. It has a really hard Law matchup if they just see blocker Law at all. It doesn't really matter that you can shuffle it, it's just the effect is so efficient for them. And then with Katakuri, I know Grayson, who made top 8 with Croc, said, oh, Yellow's a pretty easy matchup, I just win it with All Sunday and Red Rock. And it's like, well, those cards aren't searchable. And if they put your Sunday into life, like the bottom life, you may never get to cycle your Red Rock again.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. My friend is interested in playing Crocodile, so I was just watching him play a few games. And that came up, right? Like, so I have this Red Rock. I'm like, okay, we can use it because we have a Miss All Sunday to get it back when they played the 10 drop. However, when they played the Sunday, they just kind of created back to the life, and now you can't get your Red Rock back. So that was an interesting thing that, in that specific matchup, where you probably need Red Rock the most, they can definitely, get around it a little bit that way. But
yeah, you can win it with other ways, but that's like the easiest way to do it, right? They spend all 10 Dawn on Big Mom. You lose a life, but if you put it back, put out a blocker, and you still have your board of either, Kaido, Pacifista, or 9-cost Mihawk, you usually start just to win the resource advantage.
It feels like Croc would do a lot better if there was a lot more Rebecca, so maybe it'll get better in the future if people actually put in the time and start playing a lot more Rebecca. But because it's basically unwinnable, I had to play against your Croc for a while on the Rebecca side, and it's pretty much like doomed. So it seems like Croc is very you have like a good read on the meta, and you're trying to like pick your matchups, which is always a dangerous way to play, but it is also a way to get a tier A or tier B deck to the top. So I think it's got some really good cards. I think the Kaido is really, really good for certain matchups, and obviously Red Rock is really good. I'm a little surprised that Zoro was able to take down 2 Crocs, because traditionally Zoro is like not good into blue, right? Isn't that like the whole point of blue is like being a good like red counter? So I was a little surprised about that. Like, is there anything that new that Croc got that's like making him lose to Zoro all of a sudden, or has it always been like that?
I think at the highest level it's always been like that. If you go back to set 2, there was a Zoro regional winner that played a Dofi in Top Cut. It was like top 4 Montreal regionals. I think it was Nasir Jusab. I probably butchered that, but Nas Juice on Twitter and stuff. He played a Dofi and he's like, oh, I just go wide, and then I beat them on the wide board, and now they have no board to kill me with. And with Croc, they can't go wide, so Zoro just puts a bunch of little guys, hits them for 5s, and the only card advantage you have is Sentomaru. So if you either can't establish Sentomaru or it gets blown up, you can't survive to your 9 and 10 Dawn turns. You just die.
That makes sense.
I guess one question I had real quick is, I know my friend's been testing a Animal Pirates version of Croc. Have you tested? I think you maybe have tested both the Animal version and the Animal Pirates version, and then like the Sentomaru version. One version, you have a searchable Kaido. The other version you don't. So there's kind of pros and cons. Would you say the Sentomaru one has been better in your opinion, or do you think maybe people can explore more the other version?
The Impelled Down version, you mean?
No, the Animal Kingdom. So you play
okay.
Yeah, so you play the Searcher for the Kaido Pirates.
In terms of what would have a good Zoro matchup, I think the Impelled Down one would do pretty well because you put out a bunch of 7k bodies. That's like if you went back where Vankov had a good Zoro matchup for a while. But I did play a lot of Animal Kingdom. I was actually trying to play strictly Animal Kingdom Pirate Engine with no Who's Who, because I didn't want to waste a card in the deck on that when I would rather just play the card I want to search, right? Or have other cards. I played a lot of events for a bit. I played like Sanji's Pilaf. I tried out the Sobbles that one of the guys made top 8 with in Aichi, Japan. Didn't like it. It's like only good if you're forced to go second, or on the final turn if you're trying to kill someone for only 4 Dawn instead of 6 with Red Rock. But I do think it has more power in the Animal Kingdom build, and then Centaur has a bit more resource and versatility in what he brings with just getting a free body without having to play it out of your hand.
Yeah, no, I think, Centaur, if it just lives, right, it kind of just takes over the game, but problem with Red is Red has Fire Fist that can kill it.
It's really bad. All your blockers get hit by it too. It used to be like, oh, I could put out 2 5k blockers. It's like, well, now I only play a 4k and a 1k in All Sunday, and All Sunday gets blown up so fast. Yeah,
it's a very fragile card for sure.
There's gonna be a lot more Zoros now too, so I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are gonna be inspired to play Zoro. So well, my friend did play Zoro at Knoxville and said he dropped after 2 rounds because he just bricks so hard. I'm like,
well, depending on what version you're playing, right? Like
the
one that won, you're mainly just rolling for your Ezos as your searcher, and your other searcher is Dodon, so you really shouldn't be whiffing. And whiffing with Buggy is, you're kind of expecting.
Or I think he more bricked, like had a bunch of non-counters in hand and couldn't do anything.
Gordon, events that don't do anything early.
That is true, that's true.
To finish up the Croc point, I guess, if you do go Animal Kingdom Pirates, you do get ulti, which I think is, I think sometimes it looks really good and it's like really amazing, and then I think in most matchups it's not going to be much of a help. I think what it does is it puts a 1 or 2 costs on the bottom of the deck. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on ulti? Do you think it's good enough to play, or do you think it's too niche?
With the latest Croc build that I'm doing, I just played the Centaur package with 3 or 4 ulti. Because your hard matchups, like I said, are Law and Zoro, and if you can get that out on the 3 to 4 Dawn turn, and they can't answer it, which it's likely Law can't answer it, they have to have like Vista, Otama, and then Zoro would have to early Fire Fist 1 card. But it does really help in those matchups. If you can protect it, it's great. Like they swing 5 into it, you have a 2k, sure. But it can also bounce cards to your hand in bad matchups, like with Katakuri. I like to play a bunch of Kayas to try and filter for cards I'm looking for, like Red Rock, Sunday, Mihawk, and then I can put it back in hand with ulti, and if they can only swing 5 into the ulti next turn because they're playing like 10 cost Mom, I can guard that and then still get to abuse my ulti, or bottom deck like their puddings, which is huge.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I think one of the things I like about Crocodile is just all the different kind of minor plays that maybe if you're starting to play Crocodile for the first time, you're not going to see. But if you played it for, like you said, if you're preparing for a month, there's so many small little lines like that you could take. Like I was talking about last time with Doflamingo, the fact that you can stack your deck, and then if you play Centaur, you could like maybe draw the first 2 you want, and then shuffle away the rest. Or you can shuffle, when you're searching for Pacifista, if you're good at memorizing your deck, you'll be able to see what's in your life and see if you have any triggers. So there's like a lot of small things like that I think aren't really available in other colors at the moment. But yeah, like you said, I think you were mentioning it's probably more on the B tier at the moment from what you've seen, but
I think as it goes forward with more Law and Zoro, it will definitely struggle, but you can always get that good bracket of, let's say,
no Laws, no Zoros.
I think the green Dofi one's pretty good, and people can beat yellow, but I don't think you should. I think it's like 60-40 yellow.
Boris has been saying, please no Law for, 2 whole sets now?
Yeah, every tournament I go to, I'm like, dude, okay, I'll take 1 Law, and I'll take my loss, and then I'll go undefeated the rest of the round, so.
Yeah, luckily there's not too many, but who knows, maybe there'll be an uprise finally this set. Alright, moving on. Even though I think I'm going to skip around, it says ST-10, but let's just go ahead and skip to the cross tier list and then go to ST-10. I think it's a really good tier list. I think most of the things on it, if you haven't looked at it yet, I'll have a link for it in the description. Basically, it's saying that Whitebeard is the best deck, and I obviously don't agree with that too much. But then the other S tiers are Katakuri, Zoro, and Law. While basically, I think the most interesting thing that I noticed in it is that green purple Dofi is so low on it. So it's basically saying that Queen is like better than green purple Dofi. And another interesting thing is that black Luffy is on there, and so it made top 32. So by my logic, that means that anything that's above black Luffy on that tier list has a chance to top 32. What are your thoughts, Boris?
So I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, definitely, I think, well, maybe not. I think a majority of the A plus A tiers can get a top. Like I still see Doflamingo potentially being able to top. Getting a top or two. Blue Purple Crocodile, if it sees the right matchups, if it avoids certain matchups, I think is really strong. Has a lot of new cards, and has a 8-drop Crocodile that gains you a life. Combine it with blue, can be pretty strong. He does have Rob Lucci over Luffy, so in terms of, I think he's pretty much saying if you're going to play black, you might as well play Rob Lucci. One of the things about black Luffy that I didn't know is that his ability can trigger multiple times a turn, which actually made it a little bit better. I thought he would just go, it's a once per turn kind of thing, and you can attack for 6k, and that'd be really good. But I have seen the deck sometimes KO 2 to 3 things per turn, and all of a sudden you're attacking for 8 for free, right? So it is interesting. I think one of the problems with Lucci that I have seen is that a lot of times I won't even have the opportunity to use his leader ability because you run out of cards in your hand real quick. But if there's a lot of Whitebeard, I mean, double attack is always really nice. I think to your point about the green-purple Dofi, I mean, I think it's maybe still a little bit underrated. I think, it had 3 tops. And for a new deck and people kind of tempted to play other stuff, I think it did pretty well. Unfortunately, they all lost. But like said, Izoro said his hardest matchup was the green-purple Dofi. It was actually another guy called Tyler from our locals here in Atlanta. And he, I don't know. I think the deck, if there's going to be a lot more Zoros hopping around, could be a good matchup. I haven't tested against too much Zoro, but the little bit I have, again, my version is a little bit more to the ground with green-purple Dofi. I think it could definitely keep up with Zoro. But in terms of the tier list overall, I mean, I don't know.
He has Vivi in A tier. That's something I wanted to bring up too. Is this
yeah?
Vivi, what is this list that he's using that Vivi is at A tier?
I don't know.
So I have some info on that.
Oh, okay. We got the insight.
So there's that One Piece Top Decks website, which is sometimes helpful, mostly just to give you a base deck list.
Yeah.
There was a VV it got second place in a 100+ person. It was called Shumai Cup, and I think Shumai is just some sort of dumpling, so I don't know.
No, those things are delicious. I love that stuff. Those are.
But anyway, so I got second, and the list was pretty much just good red and blue cards. Played Vista, played Marco. The only Alabasta card was Chaka, I think. Chaka gives
I gotta try to find this list. You can keep going.
Chaka gives the what do you call it? The 4-cost Brook effect, where you minus 2k to something. It might be minus 3, and then you KO something that's 0.
Okay, yeah. Up to one of your opponent's characters gets minus 3,000 for this turn. After that, KO one of your opponent's characters with a power of 0 or less.
So I think the base though is just you give a character rush is cool, and you can always draw a card pretty much. And they play 7-cost Dofi because that's pretty much your 9-cost Mihawk. You bounce something and then it rushes for 7.
That's true. I think you can basically bounce anything in the game with the Kaido. I didn't even notice that because you're returning an 8, and if you're minusing, you can. Oh, you're not minusing the cost. You're just minusing the attack.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't actually have Mihawk in there, because you would need the 2-Dawn open to make it really useful. It can still be good, but it seems like a tempo deck and sort of throwing people off with your card advantage, because you can play the good blue events, right? You can play the good red events that are defensive, like Red Hawk, Rad Beam, Guard Point, then Red Rock, 3000 Worlds. You're pretty much just playing a deck that people aren't accustomed to. My friend actually played Kuro at our locals on Wednesday, and he was like, dude, I'm going to lose. And he beat 3 yellow players.
Wow.
Just beating him.
I was saying Kuro's underrated, man. I think Kuro on this, I don't know, where is it on this tier list?
Is it even on this tier list?
It's on
it's
C.
all the way in C. Okay.
I think Kuro could be good.
He's Eric Quintana. He's top 10 on that Limitless list.
Something else. What about? Do you have any insight on the kid being in high A tier? Like, what's up with that? It's got to be Film Kid, right?
Potentially. I mean, you could still play 8-drop Kid and just hope to avoid Red Rock. In some matchups, like you don't even need the 8-drop Kid. You just go like super aggro and stuff. But I think it's probably gonna be Film Kid, right? And the idea is just swarm the board and then have the double attack. If Whitebeard is gonna be the number one deck, then it's still a really good counter to it. If they don't draw blockers, they're just gonna die, right? If they do draw blockers, then kids, depending on the build, you could run Sugars, you could run Ezos to kind of tap down the blockers. But I think there was a debate. It was if you're gonna play, the film package, do you just stick with Kid, or do you play, is the purple that good? That you just go ahead with Delphi, even though you lose a card and you don't get the double attack. I don't know. I have to explore. I've definitely I have been testing out some Kid decks, kind of in my spare time, and I haven't really found anything. I've been trying out the Rosinante, the Corazon 8-drop.
Okay.
But it's too slow and it's too restrictive. It's only on play, so it's not like Kid where every turn you can. Because for example, against Whitebeard, one of my favorite plays was I would have an 8-drop. And I would tap it to play like a Nekomushi, tap their blocker, and then go double 12. Because I think mathematically it's like an extra 1k or something that I get in. But with Corazon, it's only on play. You can't use it if it survives. You can't use it again to put another 5-drop. And it only does green characters, and they have to be active, I think. Or there's too many restrictions on the card. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep exploring. I'm gonna see if I can find anything.
Anything else you guys noticed that sticks out to you on the tier list, Tyler?
Not really. There's probably a deck missing or something. I'll say I have my thoughts. Where I think everything looks good in S and A plus. I wouldn't put Katakuri actually in S. I don't think it could be any of those 3 decks in the top 4. And then the other decks I would say are sleeper picks. My sleeper picks are Vivi, because people don't know what it does. Ace, if you see what you need to, that deck's still pretty strong. And then, as we were talking earlier, Black Luffy, I just think it's pretty good if you have the right pilot. Like for the Set 3 regional in Germany, where the guy who got second with Black Luffy was also the Smoker player who won the Set 2 regional.
Damn, what a diehard.
Yeah, funny story. I was playing at locals with some random guy, and he's playing Black Luffy. It's the first time I've seen the card. And he actually managed to take a friendly off me, so I was like, damn. It's interesting. So
I saw one where a guy played Shanks. He blew up like a 4 Zoro board. You just get 4 Dawn on your leader.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy. All right.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up this point, it's going to depend, right? Initially, we thought Katakuri was going to be the best deck. Now it's kind of looking like Whitebeard is going to be the best deck. I think it might just continue to shift as the season goes on. If this counters this, right? And so depending on what's on top and what's going to be the most played, I think the decks underneath it, A plus and A, might shift around a little bit. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in checking out that VV list for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like fun. So ST-10 is right around the corner. Does anybody know exactly when it comes out? I always forget when it comes out. Sometime in October, right?
I'm going to say like mid-October or like the 24th type range.
Wait, is it in October?
I'm pretty sure it's October.
Wow, that's like 2 or 3 weeks away.
Because I know they got it in Set 4, like midway in Set 4. And I would hope we get it, similar time frame.
Well, when that comes out, it's going to pretty much change a lot of the meta. One of the decks that are going to be really good are Magellan. The purple-red Luffy sees tops when it came out in Japan. Also, the red-purple Law is insane. There's a lot of cards that show up in the ST-10 pack that could have like a huge impact in the middle of Set 4. So I guess we're going to have like a Set 4.5 this time, just like we did in OP-03, but it was like, instead of a ban, it's an addition. Is there any cards you're excited about for that one, Tyler? Anything that stands out to you?
So I think red-purple Law is just going to jump into Tier 1. along with the other decks because it did pretty well in Asia, and even right now it's in their tier 2 for set 5. And I'm sure a lot of people have been looking forward to it as soon as those starters got announced. Outside of that, I don't think we'll see too much representation outside of some diehard purple fans. I have a guy from my local. He's like the last Magellan top 8. He top 8'd Tulsa, and his only loss was like the second place Whitebeard player. And then there's one guy, Kevin Lee, I believe. He played Kaido all through set 2 as well, and he made top 16 at the Ohio event I went to.
Have you played Magellan with the buffs, though? Have you played 4.5 Magellan, though?
I haven't summoned Magellan in at least 3 months, so I'm trying to stay clean.
I mean, it's crazy, though, because there's that card.
It's super strong. It makes your Magellan leader Whitebeard.
I mean, even at that too, like you're just getting when you're minusing Dawn, you're getting plus like anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 to turn in attack just for minusing a Dawn. So I just feel like there's a good chance that all of a sudden Magellan could also just jump up into A tier or above because people are not going to be ready for how much power that it just puts out. Like you said, it turns into Whitebeard too because we're also getting the kid leader. Or the 7/8 kid that buffs your leader by 1,000 for the rest of the turn. So I think that Magellan might actually like see some like realistic play. And then also there's the Big Luffy coming in. Big Luffy is gonna be crazy. Isn't the 10 drop Luffy with the starter deck as well?
Yeah, I think it's with the starter, and you get 4 Rush Zoros in the starter, so that might see the birth of more Law and Zoro players as well.
Okay, so sell your Zoros now, right?
Oh wow, it comes with 4 of them? Dang, okay.
They're kind of cheaper now. They're only like $12. They used to be 25 or more for the longest time.
People are pretty preemptive about that kind of stuff nowadays.
One of the reasons I never got into Zoro as a deck is because I didn't own any Zoros from set 1. So I just played I just avoided red because every red deck played 4.
Yeah, I heard a Legend of Zoro was $6 when he came out that first day, and by the end of the day he was $20.
Yeah, I remember I remember seeing the prices and seeing some of the people do the market watches on YouTube, and some of the alt arts were super cheap and everything. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I mean, same thing at our locals. There's a lot of people who kind of were purple mains in set 1, and then I haven't really been able to play purple. Since then, but I think with this starter deck coming out and then set 5, they're all already excited. They're already testing. So
you get Sachi and Penguin also, dude. Like it fixes the negative ramp too. This is gonna be a nightmare, man.
So if anything, I'd say go ahead and start picking up your hard pirate stuff if you haven't. I think those promo Beppos.
The 4/5 laws.
Yeah, just pick up all that stuff now before it's too late.
So I guess we can talk about that too because the 4/5 law beats Whitebeard, right? Because Whitebeard's worst nightmare was that Isho in black now, right? And with the law coming out in the middle of it, so just for anybody that doesn't know, the law is on play -1 Dawn. If your opponent has 7 or more cards in hand, trash 2 of them, which is insane because sometimes Whitebeard has 12 cards in his hand, and you can play 2 of these and get rid of 4 cards in their hand. So that means we all might be released from a Whitebeard nightmare halfway through the season. I think the savior's coming. What do you think about that?
I think in general, purple with Magellan has a good matchup into Whitebeard and yellow. So you're saying where Magellan might fit into the meta, but yeah, that law is super strong. It's pretty much it's a blocker too. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a blocker.
4/5 purple law, so it's a blocker that does Isho's effect, and it's a pretty crazy card. Definitely will throw people off because Whitebeard can't play around it. They just physically can't get that many cards out of their hand in time. I remember playing around Isho, you're just like, well, if they have it, they have it, and then if they do, I lost.
It's also a 4 cost, so I mean, it comes out early. Yeah, it comes out early, which means that if your opponent wants to play around it, they're gonna have to counter early. And so if it's not they don't have a choice, right? You either counter early to play around it, but then you're low on cards, so they don't even have to play it at that point. They can just start picking away the rest of your hand.
Yeah,
your board.
You can just play it later too.
Yeah, and save it for later, or you just don't play around it. You don't have a chance to, and they just get 2 free cards on turn 2 or whatever. So it's super interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to see kind of just I'm just excited to shift away from red for a little bit. Oh, I technically it's like purple red, right? But I'm just excited
to. This is gonna destroy Whitebeard. I didn't even think about this before. Like, this is absolutely gonna annihilate Whitebeard when this all comes out. And then I think, like you said too, like red purple law might jump to S tier immediately, and I'm thinking that this Luffy might jump to at least A tier immediately as well. Since Whitebeard's gone, all the Whitebeard players are gonna have to, all put their brain cells together to something that can, support it. And
you mean the leader Luffy or the
the leader Luffy? Because the leader
skip
Luffy plays pretty much exactly like Whitebeard. You're just playing out giant guys, using a lot of your Dawn and being a 6K leader and staying healthy.
That should be fun to see how it changes. I always like seeing the meta change away from literally Zoro, Law, Whitebeard. It's been that for going on 6 months now.
It is pretty monotonous at times. But speaking of new things, also we had a new leader announced today for OP-06. We got ourselves a... Oh man, I'm having... Okay, here we go. It is...
Yamato.
It's green and yellow. It has double attack, and it also reattaches to Rested Dawn. I'm having trouble with the direct translation.
I think what I saw was if your opponent has 3 or less life, once per turn you can attach up to 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters, or maybe a leader as well.
Yeah, that's it. So it's one of your characters. So it's if your opponent has 3 or less life, attach 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters, and also has double attack, 5k, 4 life. I've been seeing some people say that this card is absolutely broken. Every time the community says something is broken, I just instantly disagree with them because I don't have that kind of foresight. It seems really, really good. Having double attack all the time is already just even having it against you in the form of a character is really, really annoying. So I don't know, maybe it can be really, really good, or is it just a big stinker being only at 4 life and something that's just not going to see play? What do you think, Boris?
I think 4 life is no, that's not really an excuse. We've seen so many leaders now at 4 life that are playable and very good. Red Green Law, right? They're at 4 life, so I think it's just a matter of whether that is enough life for them to be able to do their game plan. And I mean, with Yamato, if you go first, you might want to go first with this leader. I don't know, but if they don't have a blocker on turn 2, you can attack for 8. And most leaders that have 5 life, they have to either waste 2 2Ks right away, which they have to have in their opening hand, or they go down right away to 3 life. That means for the rest of the game, you're gonna get 2 additional Dawn every turn, right? Which if you're that's just your second turn. So assuming the game goes to maybe 5-6 turns, that's an additional 8 to 10 Dawn that you're gonna get. So it's gonna incentivize them to counter out, and anytime that my opponent is countering cards out of their hand early, I love that, right? Especially the green player, because
good. It's like an automatic thirst, right? It's always thirsting your opponent all the time, because the real leader ability is block this leader hit every turn, right?
Yeah, and the thing about double attack, that's taking a life from your opponent is it's almost like them drawing a card, right? Because let's say you attack for 7, right? They can just take it, or they can counter cards out of their hand. But if they take it, then that's an additional card they add to their hand, right? So you have to waste resources you have to waste Dawn to put on your guys to attack, to then have them either block it or take the life. And when you double attack, that's you cut out a whole step in that, right? You cut out one whole attack in there that you have to kind of plan out and think about, and that they just take that additional life. That's why Big Mom and Katakuri and all those effects are so powerful, is because every time they put a card back on, and that's why you always want to prefer to take life instead of give your opponent life, because every life you're giving them is almost like 2 cards, right? Because it's one attack essentially you have to waste, take the life, and then it's an additional card in hand that they can counter with, right? So essentially each life is you're giving them 2 cards. So the double attack, it's almost like you're getting an additional card if they take the life, because that's one less attack you have to commit. And also puts them closer to dead, right? So you're advancing towards your game plan of winning the game. So I think the important thing is just what are the other leaders going to look like, and is this, this seems good, but
so
who knows what else they're going
to do? If you had to rank it right this second,
right this second.
Yeah. What tier are you gonna put in just based on leader ability alone?
Well, it also, you have to also think about what colors. I mean, I would rank it high just because I'm a green player. This is the kind of card I'm looking forward to. This is the kind of leader that I would like to see.
So you think it's going to be good, basically?
I think it's going to be good. Again, I'm not too familiar with what's kind of good at the moment with OP-05, but then there is kind of the scenario where if there are a lot of 6K leaders in the set, right, and 6K becomes the new standard, this card might be a little more difficult to use. Because then you have to, hit an extra Dawn every time to try to hit that double attack. It makes it a lot easier for your opponent to counter out. So I would say, depending on where it goes, are we seeing more of a shift towards 6K as the standard, or are we kind of keeping the rest of the leaders instead are going to stay 5K? Are we going to see 6 life leaders all of a sudden? Kind of see where the game goes.
All right, what do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to see what else comes out of OP-06, because this is sort of the first spoiler. And people are saying, oh, what if there's a banished leader? What are the other leaders going to look like if this is, by the dev standard, a fair card to put out? I think if the card had 5 life, I think I would automatically put it tier 1. But we're going to have to see how the meta develops and how other decks can pretty much get starved out of resources early. Because, if you discard a 1K is fine for some decks, like Whitebeard, they have a ton of 1Ks or 2Ks, a bunch of cards in hand. But early game, Law has their 4 or 5 cards that they all need to build that board. And it's really hard for them to just let it go, or other decks can just brick in the early game. Now, oh look, you took 2 life. Are they good cards? Nope, they're not good cards. Now I'm just losing the game faster. And then green has a lot of ways to rest blockers, so where Boris said, oh, they don't have a blocker out yet. Well, yeah, I can also play there's Straw Sword, Yamato, Nekomamashi, Sugar. There's a lot of cards that will just invalidate those blockers really fast.
That is
true. And by the way, there's people buying out the alternate art Odins already on TCG Player.
I bought them this morning, 8 a.m.
I just sold my playset. Maybe I shouldn't have sold it.
They were $8, and I wanted to finish it. I was like, I'll just find them in person, and I saw the Yamato at $750, and I was like,
It's so silly though, because this happened with Poly. And then Poly's already down to nothing again, right? Poly shot up so much, and then it came straight back down.
I think it's more of a better safe than sorry, right? Better just pick them up now. No reason not, because the chance of them going below 8 again is probably low. It's really low.
Yeah, I think Poly's middled at 13 right now, and they bottom out again. And now the regular super is $1, where
Well, you don't want to get stuck as a Katakuri situation right now. I know Alchemist, we were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah,
Katakuri, I think they're saying $50 or something like that, and I'm like,
it's so bad.
Wow. So you just if it's early, just go ahead and pick it up. No reason not to, unless you think it can definitely keep going down. If you're planning to use it, right? So Odin's obviously a very powerful card. They
also have the super rare, which is still fairly cheap right now for anyone just looking to play it.
Yep.
All right, so quick last topic. I guess there's I feel like there's not a ton of discussion around it, but what do you think is the best 3v3 team right now? I'll give mine last because mine's going to be super generic, so maybe I'll have to switch it up by the end. But what do you think, Tyler, is the best 3v3 team you had to could pick all 3 leaders?
I guess we should probably just preface this a little bit. So Tyler's going to be going to 3v3 in South Carolina. I think Alchemists, we're both planning to go as well.
Yeah, and then there's another one in
and then there's one this weekend in Mexico. I know some of the guys. I think Will to Win might be going.
Yeah, I know Impact's playing with Will to Win.
Yeah, so I was like, that's gonna be a crazy team. They're really good favorites, I think, to win.
Mm-hmm. One of them is gonna have to play not Whitebeard though, so that should be fun. I think. Oh yeah, Impact said he was playing Law, and I was like, why would you play Law? But
that's interesting.
Now I see.
Yeah, no, they're really. I actually have played against Impact at Orlando. He's a great player. Actually, made a really, really great move that I was not anticipating. I managed to squeak it through a little, just barely, but I'm really excited to see how they do. And if they do any kind of tournament coverage this weekend, I definitely will be watching. But yeah, I guess just with those events coming up, I guess what do you think? What are we expecting? Do you think from the teams to is going to be, or what do you think the best team composition at the moment would be?
So I think I haven't looked too much into team composition, who sits at A, B, or C seat, what matchups do I think is going to be in the middle seat, blah, blah, blah. I think you're just looking for 3 good players you can trust to win one game. and that you don't really have to communicate with. Some people, like, oh, they're playing against a rogue matchup, I'm gonna, give them some pointers that I might have. But for the most part, the decks I think you're gonna see in the 3v3 are gonna be Zoro, Law, Whitebeard. Some others will be Nami, maybe Croc. I think there will be some Croc. I think Rebecca will be shown up, if I didn't just literally already say that. And then Katakuri. I think those would be like the main 7 or so decks.
Well, pick 3. I'm putting you under the gun. You just gotta pick 3.
If I'm picking
you're playing this, you're playing this. Like you're.
And by the way, you don't have to say what your team's playing, obviously, because if you guys are playing, But what do you think if someone just had to choose today, like pick 3 decks, what would they choose?
I'm basing it off Japan's 3v3, where their top 16 was like every deck played Zoro, Whitebeard, Law, or it was like Ace and something else. It was literally like 14 teams of all 3 players on red.
Well, I think that
I forgot about that, yeah.
I think that actually wraps it up. There's not really more for discussion. Obviously, the best team is going to be Zoro, Law, and Whitebeard. And if you have anything else to say about that, it's going to be tough for you to win. Just bottom line, right? I think there's like a little discussion on that, right? Like, everything about that squad just destroys everything else about every other squad, right? Unless you just, like, somehow get a soul read on the team and being like, alright, Rebecca player, you're gonna play against their Zoro, don't worry.
So I guess that's our recommendation, right? If you guys are gonna go to a 3v3 event, probably play those 3 decks, unless you have a specialist on your team. I know, for example, I think Jackson won with the Dofi player, I think, on their team.
That was Cody, 5, right?
Cody Angelov.
Yeah, that guy's just been a blue player, for forever. And then I think, if you're playing with someone like a Jonas or like a Clay, right? They're probably they love playing black. So
maybe you can get away with Rebecca. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Yeah. Jonas went against his team, bro. He played Katakuri.
Yeah, he played Katakuri last weekend.
He was one of the first players I've seen dip in a top 8. They said he had to catch a flight, and then the other guy dropped to go to Six Flags. So props to him, man.
Yeah, at that point, you got your Cyril Luffy. The only thing you're really playing for is maybe like a Mad, and obviously, if you care about limitless points, or like the legacy of your, trying to get a win. But
dude,
I would have definitely stuck around, unless
Oh, they didn't count one of your things? Yeah, I think that they're not counting some of them. So.
I thought they would count top cut playouts more.
No,
for
it's
like
just
my
by
regional
participation. It's just by the amount of people that are in the tournament. Is the only way they do it.
Yeah. I just thought maybe going like 12-1 was more respectable than like a 7-2.
Doesn't matter.
7-2 at a what do you call it? 7-2 at 1,000-person regional, and then 12-1 at my win is the same amount of points, pretty much.
Nope. Sorry, it's only the amount of people. You technically you played like the same guy twice. So how many times can you beat the same?
I did that twice. How many times can you beat
the same guy? You know what I mean? That's not fair.
I beat Rahul Reddy twice, and then I beat Jackson on the run back.
Oh, you beat Rahul Reddy? I know he's an amazing Pokemon player.
I played him in top 8. We had both just like scraped by our Luffy's, and we're like, all right, it doesn't matter who wins now.
That's cool. Yeah. And then you beat Jackson as well. Not a lot of people can say they beat him.
Yeah, my bracket was I think a guy named Muhammad F. I can't pronounce his last name. I don't want to butcher it. I played him in 16, Zoromir. I played Rahul, Zoromir in top 8. I played Russell in top 4.
Russell Lepar?
Russell Lepar, yeah.
Oh,
he has a couple Zero Luffy's now.
Yeah.
And I played Thomas Wynn, who he's been on a bit of a cold streak with Law. He usually goes X2, but he had, I think, 2 or 3 ops.
Wait, but no, he's not on a cold streak, right? There's only been one tournament, and he topped at Orlando, right? He's almost topped.
He made top 32 at.
Yeah, so what do you? So he's topped every event, but he's still on a cold streak.
He's going X2. He's like.
Well, I think Orlando was top 16. Was like a.
Yeah, I know Thomas. He's got like 25th, like that range for like 4 online events.
I can't hear that he's on a cold streak because I've played him too much, and he's like up against.
The guy's insane. He's so good. But he's looking for more like Cyril Luffy's or at this point.
Yeah, aren't we
Shank.
all? He
essentially owed a big result. You think? Like I think you're saying essentially like any day now he's gonna, hit a big
and Justin DeZazzo played Law like all of set 3, and they had a bunch of like X2 or like just barely X3 finishes. And those guys, Justin's won 2 online regionals, and Thomas has topped at least 2 or 3 of these. So I think they're due for a very good showing in OP-04.
Oh yeah,
That
100%.
month of October where it's like 4 online events or so, whatever it is, I think they'll show out.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps it up for us. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And also, Infernity, follow Infernity. He also has a Patreon where you should give him money, but he also has free stuff on there. And you should check it out. I'll have the link to that in the description. And yeah, that's going to do it for us. Peace, guys.
Peace.
Later.